Well, I lost a good 10, $15 million of my own money. And again, back to, squares, I was in debt. And I said, something's got to change here. You're doing something. And I don't understand why we're doing this, because when I look back, I'm like, all these red flags were here. Why didn't you see them? When we have false beliefs, we don't see the red flags because we got these blinders on, right? And I couldn't understand any of this at the time. So then the next dramatic change came, and I left to India. I pretty much gave everything away. I had to sell my house, had to sell my properties just to pay off all the debts from all the deals that went bad. And I was playing some big games. And I packed everything that I had into 2 suitcases, and I went to India. So I was in India for 7 years, just again, finding myself. And I ended up in Rishikesh, which is the birthplace of yoga. People don't even know what their story is, right? We're all playing a story in our head. You go out into nature and you just brain dump. What's my story? Bring it out of your subconscious and understand. And that's where you're going to read it after. Just write your heart. Just go to the depth of your subconscious mind and just dump it, right? Everything that you can get out, just dump it within that 4 hours. You're going to disconnect from society. Then you're going to start reading it. And especially, and I'm saying story right from your childhood, right from your born. What do you remember? Get it all out of that subconscious mind. And this is going to be your raw data.
Welcome to another episode of Reinventing Life After 50. I'm your host, Scott. And today I'm really excited to have a special guest in studio, Raj Brar. Raj, why don't you tell people where you're calling from and what we're going to be chatting about today, my friend?
Well, first of all, thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me. Great to be here. It's a great day. Feel great.
Yeah, man.
I'm calling in from Los Angeles. It's I know it's a little cold where you're at, but
why you got to rub that in?
I waited sweat.
We went live to rub that in.
I think I'm sweating a little bit over here because it's hot.
There you go. There you go.
Hey, I know what the cold is like. I'm from Canada originally, and I was born in a place that was like minus 60 Celsius in the winter.
So you hear me complain about cold, you're like, Scott, come on now. You don't know what cold is.
That's it. I hear people complain about cold, and I've lived in minus 60 Celsius, and I've also lived in Dubai. So when people are complaining about the heat, I'll ask them, hey, so, bro, what's hot for you? So I've seen both spectrums, so it's pretty cool to be. I just love it all.
Yeah, man. Cool. Well, I'm super happy to have you here today. I know we talked about this on the front side, but the audience likes this kind of stuff, the behind the scenes kind of things and conversation. We thought we had a calendar mix up, but we got it worked out. So it's beautiful, man. It worked out how it was supposed to work out today. So I kind of want to hop right into this. One of the things immediately, like whenever I was, doing research, when we had our discovery call and we were chatting, and then some of the research based on things you sent me and what I found and how I actually found you, what made me reach out to you to begin with was I know you went through an amazing personal journey, including losing 100 pounds, right? And then you spent time. I mean, this is interesting. I mean, this whole sentence right here alone could be a whole show, right? Losing 100 pounds and then spending time in the Himalayas learning from the sages, the old wise people. How did that transformation begin for you? Talk us through that. I'm really excited to hear this.
Well, the first one, okay. So being overweight, I was overweight since ever since I can remember, 6 years old. So being overweight right up into 25-ish. And my heaviest, I was 285 pounds.
And how tall are you?
I'm 5'10", I guess I would say. Yeah, 5'10".
Yeah.
And 44 pant size is what my heaviest was, Scott. So going through that in life, right from 6 years old, there's so many false beliefs that were programmed in me. Kids teasing me, kids being mean to me being ashamed of myself, always hiding myself, and just building this protective layer to protect myself as a kid because everybody was teasing me. And I'm talking about kids to grown-ups to everybody. Everybody's pointing their fingers. Look at the fat guy. Look at the fat guy. And you build this protective layer, and you don't really realize it at the time. I'm talking now past tense. I'm looking back, and I went through all this personal development. But you build this thick skin but underneath that thick skin, you're just pushing everything down. Oh, these kids are bugging me. You build this protective layer, but inside you're just creating so much toxicity within yourself because you're pushing it all down. You don't want to deal with it. And you start realizing, well, number one, my biggest false belief was that I'm not good enough because everybody was teasing me. So I'm not good enough. I'm an outsider. And, throughout my life, I was dealing with all this stuff. So anyway, one thing just snapped one day, and I said, I'm getting fit. That's what I'm going to do. And this was about 25. I had all these dreams in my head, as a fat kid, or all children, you dream certain things, that I'm going to be lean, I'm going to be successful, I'm going to have nice cars, I'm going to have nice things, I'm going to get back in society. And this was the story. We all have a story, and this was my story. And I said, okay. So, I started working out diligently, consistently, and I lost, probably within a year, I lost a good 50, 60 pounds. And then over 2 years, it was about 100 pounds. And the interesting thing was is when I lost that weight, when I looked in the mirror, I was still fat. The craziest thing. So I'm like, I'm this lean, fit guy, but I'm looking in the mirror and I'm fat. So what's going on here? And I was playing all these fat stories from these false beliefs in my life. And in my mind, I was fat. I was still hiding myself. I thought I couldn't hang around with the fit people. So there was a whole slew of false beliefs, and I was still running on fat programming. And I was like, what's going on here? And I'd be looking at my family. Do I look fat in this shirt, or just stupid things? And so I realized that, okay, to sustain this, and that's why most people, when they lose the weight, they don't sustain it, because they don't understand that really this whole thing's a mental game. And you got to fix your mind first. So when I went deep into that, and then I started realizing beliefs, and I was like, yo, you got to fix your mind first. And then I started programming myself with affirmations and looking at pictures, and just every way that I could program myself, I started programming myself. And then the mind followed. So really, the mind is the master, body's the slave. And we get it reversed in society. We always want to go after the effects, and we don't want to go after the cause. So once I realized that, then I was able to really own that transformation and sustain it, and then get better over time. So really, that was the first transformation in my body and my mind. And it led me down a path that now leads me into the next thing, saying, crazily, I was chasing success. To me, what was success? Well, success was based off those false beliefs when I was programmed from a child. So it was money, right? And it was money, it was material things, because I needed to be rich. I needed to look rich. I need to show off these things to get back at all of society for punishing me for being fat. So I was stuck in this cycle. Yeah, I looked great. I was able to wear great clothes. Now the next cycle was I was chasing success, and success for me was for all the wrong reasons. It was money, it was cars, it was homes. I was really self-centered. I was a jerk. And it was all about me. Those people you could watch them walking down the street. It's like, this guy's so flashy, wearing watches, Rolex watches, jewelry. Now I just wear, beads. I don't need the jewelry. But it was a cycle of just dissatisfaction. And I was trying to find my way through life. And I was completely lost, Scott. I was so lost. And I was making really risky moves. Like, I was making millions of dollars and came from really nothing. And then I would make all these wins in life, bank the money. And then, because my validation was in making deals and making that money, I started playing a riskier game, and I would go all in on certain investments. And like, I've lost all my money 3 times in life. And this last one, probably about 7 years ago, I lost a good 10, $15 million of my own money. And again, back to, squares, I was in debt. And I said, something's got to change here. You're doing something. And I don't understand why we're doing this, because when I look back, I'm like, all these red flags were here. Why didn't you see them? And when we have false beliefs, we don't see the red flags because we got these blinders on, right? And I couldn't understand any of this at the time. So then the next dramatic change came, and I left to India. I pretty much gave everything away. I had to sell my house, had to sell my properties just to pay off all the debts from all the deals that went bad. And I was playing some big games. And I packed everything that I had into 2 suitcases, and I went to India. So I was in India for 7 years, just again, finding myself. And I ended up in Rishikesh, which is the birthplace of yoga. And I spent 2.5 years there in solitude, learning from masters and sages, like really people that you wouldn't get access to unless you're really devoted devotee, immersed. And I learned so much about myself, about the belief structures, about reprogramming the subconscious mind, going to the root of this tool that we have is the body and the mind. We're never really ever enlightened of how to use it, right? We just, here's success, here's this, society's just brainwashing us with all this stuff, and we get lost, and we find our way into all these vices, alcohol, drugs. Doctors are giving us drugs for the mental problems, and nobody really wants to fix the problems. They just say, hey, here, take these quick fixes. And in that transformation, I learned a lot of things about myself. I learned about the beliefs, the structures. I learned how to reset the programming and how to program myself by design. And it was such a blessing, and I'm grateful for that. And I came back into the West Society now, writing my book about identity shifting, journey of awakened identity. And yeah, I'm back now just to share the story, and so people can learn from my mistakes and hopefully not commit them themselves. Because even coming back, I'll tell you, Scott, there's nothing like this in society where people are teaching you, first of all, telling you that a lot of the programming you have is false, or how to even understand, is your programming real? Is it reality? Because I have a different perception than you. You have a different perception than me.
Right.
And how do we know which one's real? Which one's the reality? Right? Yours is on your beliefs. Mine is programmed on my beliefs. But how do we know which is right?
Yeah. It's the lenses that we have put on over the years based on our experiences. And so that's where grace comes in, right? Because your truth is your truth and my truth is mine. There's some cross section that happens with those two truths, as long as we're harming each other and it's overtly false and negative and whatever, but you have a different perspective and it's okay. But and I think that's a problem. Like, this could lead into a different discussion that I don't necessarily want to get into on this, but I think that's a problem with a lot of, when you look at political divisiveness. In fact, it's one way, this is the only way. It's like, there's actually some commonality in both sides when you really look at it. Let's find what that is and start the conversation from there. Because if you're only looking at through the glasses that you have prepared based on your life experiences, you're never going to grow, and you're never going to learn the other person's perspective and really have an amazing journey in this, this short life that we have. It's short and it's long, all in the same, right? So there's a couple of things that you saw me. Anybody that's watched the show before, they know when I have a guest and I take notes. And I like to circle back on things because they're impactful. It's something you was talking about. You said, people being mean to you and things like that. But I submit to you that the greatest damage that was being done was you were being mean to yourself, right? You were being mean to yourself. And I think too, like you had mentioned something about this, the appearance versus the mental. And I think, I know you work with people too, where you kind of help coach them through physical kind of things. Man, the vast majority, I would say 99% of my clients, the things that we're working on is some kind of thing they didn't deal with from childhood. Almost always. And so a lot of times, I've mentioned this before, people will come to me and say, and particularly males, I don't get this with females. There's different things that they focus on, but males will say, hey, I want a 6-pack. And I ask them why. And they said, well, because I want the way it looks. Well, are you doing that for you? Are you doing that for other people to be impressed by what you did? And it's funny when you position it like that. I think they inherently know it, But when you say it to them and they have to think about it and then repeat it back, they go, oh God, that I do have the wrong focus. So let's really focus on how it's going to make you feel, and you'll get a benefit potentially. But are you competing? Because if you're not competing, why do you feel like you need a six pack? Because most people don't. People that are competing, they don't walk around like that all the time, right? So I like that, man. I love that a lot. Something you said there kind of was one of my next questions that I led into. Want to lead into is that you combine ancient Eastern wisdom with modern techniques. Talk about that. The blend and how they synergistically fit together in your view.
What I noticed, Scott, being over here in the West, that there's a big disconnect from the East to the West. So moving to I spent 7 years in India, and moving to India and then seeing a whole different way of life, and then getting deeper into the places of spirituality in the Himalayas, I started to get to understand the Buddhist way of looking at things, the Hindu way of looking at things, and based off the Sanskrit technologies and terms. And I didn't even know these things existed, but learning from that aspect with whether it's meditation, like everything that we have on the West that scientists or psychologists have created, going in the East, there's something similar that's been created, thousands of years before that,
Right.
because they've been practicing it so long. And then I was able to learn that side and learn the Western side, because if you're just talking East, the people on the West will say, well, no, that's kind of hocus pocus, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just now the East is we're understanding energy, we're understanding the chakra systems,
Right.
the chi systems as well. It's all energy. They're energy meridians. And we have 108 nadis in the body. And that's where, if you go to acupuncture, they're touching on those energy centers. And when you start understanding that we have 7 chakras and what each one is doing, what energy it's channeling, what colors they represent, it's a map of your own body. And when I realized this, I'm like, all my body's because I'm different than you, in health, every single person is different. So a doctor can't tell me the same thing he's going to tell you, because based on my DNA and my genes, it probably won't work for me, because we come from completely different places, right? Our ancestors. So understanding then the chakra system and going down deep, what is off balance, which chakra is off balance, what foods I can take, what mantras I can practice in my meditations, what colors I can focus on. So it becomes a technology. And when I learned all this, I was just amazed. I said, this is a map of myself.
It's interesting the way you said that. An Eastern philosophy that's, old. I mean, it goes way back in time. And how you just unpacked that and said, how's the technology? That was really interesting the way you unpacked that. I like that. I never heard it talked like that about that way before, because I'm into that. I think you and I talked about in the discovery call, meditation, I believe in the universal energy and all that kind of stuff. I've never heard anybody say it that way before. It's very interesting. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just had to.
Yeah, no problem.
It was really cool. I like that.
And these are the enlightenments that I want people to take because look, we have so much technology in the East. A lot of gurus are teaching it, but there's a disconnect where a lot of people will say, well, you're a guru and you're not in the West and you're not facing the vices that I have to face. Okay, that's fine. Now, I'm a person who was active in all those vices and indulged in them, went to the East, sat with the gurus who probably wouldn't sit with these people anyway, because they wouldn't know how to find them. And it's, challenging to live there for 7 years. So going there and learning from them and coming, okay, I don't have a beard. I have tattoos. I look like the West people, right? I'm from the West. So I bring the East technologies, the teachings to the West, and merging the two so that now there's a twist. So some people won't learn what the Western philosophy feels. Now when we're talking about the East and I'm merging the two, and then you're picking up, oh, wow, that's a technology. And this is what I said when I was out there. I said, it's a technology. Like, the chakra system is a map of my own body. I don't have to go to any doctor. I don't have to go see anybody. I don't need an energy healer. When people are seeing energy healers, that's fine, but that means you don't understand your own energy. So if you're taking the time to understand your own chakra system, you can go so deep into that of the study of the chakras, Scott. You can be in that the rest of your life and still not learn it all. That's how.
So
deep
so
it
how
is.
does one learn, as for the audience, how does one learn about their own chakras and how to do that without going to somebody to read, energy read and that kind of stuff? How does one learn that?
So an
I
interesting
mean, not
thing,
everybody's going to be able to go to the East. I mean, I would obviously love to do that. I'm sure many of the listeners I would love to be able to do that. It's not practical for a lot of people, right? So how do, you came to it probably because of that, being there. So how does one do that?
So now coming from the West and being in India, so I'll tell you what kind of my process was when I got there and I went deep into these teachings. First of all, we're in the West, so we're using. We all think we know the chakras. Everyone's talking about the third eye.
That's the only one they know.
That's the only one they know, right? That's the only one I knew. I knew the sacral and the third eye. And when I got to India and I asked those questions like you're asking, they started quizzing me. Name the chakras. And I said, and I'm talking like I know the chakras. Third eye, third eye, third eye. And they say, name the third eye in Sanskrit. And I couldn't. He said, give me the color. And I couldn't. And so he said, let's start from the bottom. He said, number one, he gave me an example like this. If you had, for any man listening to this or girl, woman, if you had your partner and you want to court your partner, first thing you're going to do, you're going to ask them their name. You're going to ask her, what color do you like? You're going to ask them, your favorite things.
The basics. Yeah.
The basics. And these are basics for us to get to know anyone. So now if we're coming to the chakras, now if you don't know the names of each chakra, you don't know the colors of each chakra, you don't know the earth state, earth, water, fire, air, ether. If you don't know any of those, like you got to first just know them. And if you don't know them, don't go jump into the third eye. We call Agna. Don't go jump into Agna because now you're disconnected from all the rest of the chakras. So you got to start from the bottom, which is the Muladhara, and that's earth. And then Svadhisthana, which is water. Manipurka, which is fire, and that's your sacral. Anahata, which is air. And then Vishuddhi, which is ether. And then you get to third eye, which is Agna, right? And then Sahasrar, which is your crown. And then, so what I did, he said, first of all, he gave me a map of the chakras. He said, put this, when you wake up, put it where you eat, put it where you wake up, put it so you can see this every single day. And then
because it just then becomes a part of you. It just becomes a part of you. Yeah.
It's like your significant
other. It already
other.
Is. But you're now recognizing it for the first
We're
time.
just disconnected from ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know what we are. We don't know our energy centers. We don't know our meridians. We just go to a doctor and we want to pay him money to fix us. Whether it's a doctor, nutritional doctor, whether it's an MD, whether it's an energy healer, we don't want to take any responsibility for ourselves. So then I got to know these and I talk to my chakras every day. I connect with my chakras every day. It's become a part of me, just like brushing my teeth. So if something's out of line, when I'm eating certain foods, whether, they coincide with the colors of the chakra, and you start connecting everything with chakra. So when I see water, I don't see water outside. I see water inside me in the sacral chakra. I see the water element. When I see earth, I see the Muladhara chakra, right? So everything becomes one, and you start becoming so connected within yourself that your energies aren't off. These energy healers, this is blocked, that's blocked. Number one, if something's blocked, if your arteries are blocked, you're going to have a heart attack.
Right.
So these energy people are telling you you're blocked. Like you can have something that's restricted and the energy is not coming through fully, but you're never blocked because you just can't operate like that. Any blockage in life, things die, right? A plant, if it has any blockage, is going to die. A person, you have any blockage in your arteries, in your esophagus, anything, you're going to die. Right? Or you're going to have some really bad complications. And so when people tell you your chakras are blocked, it's
what I like about that too is because I think many times if we find that it could potentially be too difficult, as you said, we go to other people to fix us. We then don't want to do the work to do it because it would be too hard. Blocked seems like it's done. You're done. There's nothing I can really do about that. But restricted, there's some potential here. I can work with that. That's a really neat way, very insightful way of unpacking how that is. And I think about the chakras. I mean, I see them on a chart. I know what they look like. I couldn't name them, right? They all work synergistically together. I mean, if you look up the definition, I think it's in Webster's, their definition is the combined effort of a group is greater than that of the individual. Well, you could say the same thing about the chakras. The combined effort of the chakras are greater than that of one individual chakra. So that's beautiful, man. I like
Beautifully
that.
Said. I like that.
Yeah. And then like something you were talking about, energy is like, so it's funny, man. And you probably get this too. When I talk to people, particularly we're in the West, I'm in the South. So it's completely different. It's more accepted on the West Coast. We lived in LA for several years, but we start talking about, yeah, hey, in the morning, the very first thing I do is I have a meditation of gratitude because I'm trying to, it's all about priming myself for the day and the environment that I'm stepping into because I know what I'm walking out into in the world, that most people aren't primed. They just are co-pilots in their own life. They're not actively participating and taking control of their life. And you tell them, say, you know, we're all energy-based beings. Oh, here you go. Like, oh, you're one of those guys. Like, well, you actually are. You have positive and negative ions throughout your entire body. And they're all communicating and bouncing off one another on the cellular level. If you go look at the cells on the cellular level, that's exactly what's happening. So you have to believe that you are on some level, that you're energy-based. So if we know that we have energy flowing through us and energy is flowing through the world, we absolutely can impact that and change our lives by understanding them. So kind of going back, I'm going to dive into this a bit more. I like this. So, okay, we've understood the basis of the chakras. We've printed out what we need to and have it in front of us. We make it part of our daily, like we do anything else. It becomes as important to us as breathing, right? Then what?
Well, that in itself, if you just did that, especially, as we get older, okay, if you just understand your chakras and you build that relationship with chakras as we get older, as we're getting over 50, our main thing, and you know this well, is regulating our energy.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't know how to regulate our energy, we're going to get older faster. We're going to get more stressed. We don't know how to regulate our stress. We don't know what we're eating. Like, it's the basis. So once you start understanding your energy, if you just stuck to that, going through that and understanding, that's a lifelong principle in itself because it's okay, so now if we're talking chakras and we're talking about meditation. So each chakra has a mantra. So there's a meditation. So what we do, I work with my clients to open each chakra up, but you got to connect with each chakra to understand what is the mantra. What is the mantra of each? So
is that so that you're, and excuse me, this is for me and the audience as well. So we're communicating with correctly so we can activate it. Well, maybe this is the wrong terminology to use, but to make sure it's working for us, tapping into it. Is that what we're trying to do with those mantras and understanding that? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, again, it's exactly just building that relationship. So if what they do in the Western society, if I love a girl, I'm going to go tattoo her name. I wouldn't do that. But what is it telling you? What are you signifying by the process? You're saying, I love you so much that I'm willing to take pain and I'm going to subject myself to punishment. That's how much I love you. So when you're building these relationships with your chakras and the mantras are Lam, Bam, Ram, Yam, Ham, Om. So when you're doing these practices on a daily basis, it's just building your energy flow within you. And the more your energy is flowing, the more anything is in flow, in natural flow state, you're going to feel like I am coming on 50. I feel like I'm 16,
Yeah.
and it's why it's a energy regulation. Anybody I'm around, they're like, whoa, you have amazing energy. You're just flowing,
So let me ask you, you're flowing there. I want to ask you this because I get this with clients, but this is really ties into this. It happens to me. There are days that I'm in, and we call it flow state. You just know, man, you're in it. You're like, man, if I could be somewhere else right now where I could, like, say you're wanting to present something to a board or something to raise money, like today would be the day, I would slay it. Like, and sometimes, like a lot of times people will come to me and it's like, I just don't know. It feels random. I like, but it's not. And I think that's part of what kind of this line of questioning I have with you is, because obviously you can tune it and tune into that flow much more readily if you know how to align your chakras, right? So speak to that, because it shouldn't be a random kind of thing. You should be able to activate that with the proper priming of it, right?
Yes, indeed. Once we understand our energy and we're connected with each chakra center. So chakra is energy it's a wheel of energy. That's what chakra means. So when you are regulating through our own body, meditation is great, but connect with your energy, connect with your chakras, connect with the mantras, right? And you want to liberate your chakras, you want to open your chakras, and you want to get them to flow. Now, if we want to get deeper into this, so understanding the chakras. So we have animalistic, the first three chakras are our animal flow. Okay. So we got survival, we got procreation, we got those three. If we're staying up into the sexual organs, so what a man does when you are ejaculating, you're letting out that energy. Okay. And that's what man knows. Man knows to come to that level. If we're not enlightened beings and we don't understand our energy chakra systems, and man is just having sex and he's letting go of that vital energy, right? We call it the vital energy. He's leaving everything at his sacral chakra. That's it. That's all you know. So the enlightenment happens from the anahata, the heart chakra, up. So when you're not bringing that flow up to the higher levels of your chakra, you cannot regulate that, because guess where creativity is coming? Creativity is coming from the third eye, right? So the energy, the most powerful energy a human has is a sexual energy. So that's at the sacral chakra. Now bringing that up and then merging it with the third eye energy, and then bringing it up into the eternal, into the sahasrara. Now you're regulating that energy and you're actually connecting to flow, where now you're in the flow state of channeling creativity itself. And when you're channeling creativity, it's a world where I don't do that around people, in the sense that when I know how to connect, so I'm in my own world and I could zone out and just channel creativity and just sit and write and write. And I know it's not my writing and it's not my ideas, it's not my thoughts, but I've connected into that flow state and it's just channeling. And so just what I said there right now. So I practiced abstinence for 5 years, and 5 years, no relationship with woman, no sexual, even pleasing myself, any of that. So that gave me the ability now to bring the energy, the vital energy up. So if you can imagine that you don't ejaculate for 5 years, what kind of potent energy you have within you, and working with that energy to bring it up to, that's what we call the enlightened state, samadhi. So bringing that up, that's why monks, they practice that. Brahmins, they practice that. It's because they're understanding and they know how to bring the energy up. So once you know how to bring these energies up, and you're connecting right from the root chakra, bringing it up and understanding how each one links and going, you have to go step by step by step. You can't just jump to the third eye, because you can never activate. You have to start from the bottom, because our energy, like you said, ions, we have to ground with the earth first, and start bringing that up.
Mhm.
So even when you're just walking, when I'm walking, I'm grounded because I'm
Yeah.
on the Muladhara, right? So it's what it is, it's awareness. The whole game is awareness, but it's understanding each chakra, understanding how to connect with it. So you can see just off this small conversation, and I can go way deeper, but
Yeah.
most people aren't ready for those states. So it's not a purpose to go into it. But what I've just said, this is 7 years of practice and study.
Mhm.
Now, if you say now what, but that now what will take you 7 years just to say what I
Yeah,
just
right.
said, right?
Yeah, right,
So
right, right.
it's such a in-depth map and technology of
Mhm.
self. That's why I say, if you just stayed in your chakras, you don't have to go anywhere else.
So what we'll do, I'm going to tell you this right now while we're recording, is I'm going to have you back and we're going to spend more time on this chakra conversation. I want to be able to go deep into that because I think it's important, and I think it would be really good information for particularly the 50, anybody but 50 plus community, because it's such a transitional time, right? Because many of us the kids are going off, we're empty nesters, and it's like, oh God, what? And you're just now really having conversations with yourself, like intentionally, because you don't have all the distractions. So this is really a pivotal time. So we got to do this because I think it's important. I think it's a service because you can speak to it from a Western conversational tone without it sounding like, yeah, it's like you said earlier, yeah, it's easier in the East, you don't see the same things. Well, you've been there and done that, so it's a really good conversation to have. So let's make sure we when we end this today, we get another time on the books for that show specifically. I'm excited about that,
It
man.
will be my pleasure.
Very excited about that. Okay, so let's talk about your book. I got a question here because I'm prepared,
Yeah.
right? So in your book, Awakened Identity, The Journey to Purpose and Empowerment, you emphasize identity shifting. What does that mean? What does identity shifting mean, and how does it impact personal transformation?
So we all have an identity. And, I know for myself, before I came into self-development, I thought this is the way I'm born. I can't change anything. And this is my identity. And everybody just has to put up with me. And I got to put up with myself. And this is where most people are stuck because they just don't understand, what is your identity?
Mm.
Identity is like a pair of clothes, right? So we have our identity our whole life. Are you going to wear the same clothes your whole life? You're gonna change weights, colors are gonna get faded. You've washed them so many times, they're outdated. So if you don't understand that you can go to the store and buy new clothes, like the cavemen, they would just be wearing, little loins. But we understand, okay, this shirt's no good anymore. I need to go get another one. Okay, so how about when through your cycle of life, you grow, you step back, you grow forward, and you have all these challenges that come in your life that force you to grow, adversities, bad things happen in our life. And these things are just opportunities for us to introspect and go inside and to understand, hey, who am I? And there's so many different aspects to the identity, whether, your career, people, if they don't have a career, or if they get fired from a job or they change careers, they're like, I lost my identity. My identity was in my job, right? Or my identity was in my girlfriend, or my identity was in that house. My identity was in that car because I'm the guy who drives a certain car. And if I sell that car, well, I lose a part of me. So identity shifting is when, let's say where you are today, you're looking here's a good analogy. You're looking in the mirror, and the person looking back at you, you don't even know who that is. You're like, who is this person? Why am I working this job? How did I get into this career? Do I even like this career? Was it my choice? Was it my family's choice? Like, why am I doing this? And you feel lost. And then you have a self-concept of your future self, of what you should be doing. Well, maybe I don't want to have this career, and I want to you have a different career in your mind, right? So that gap is from where you are to where you think you should be. I call it's the identity crisis. You don't know who you are, and you don't have enough guidance in your life to questions to say, it goes all back to your beliefs. And that's why I talk a lot about the belief structures, and I teach my clients, we got to go back to your beliefs, because most of your identity is based from your beliefs. So let me ask you a question, Scott. Most of our identity and most of our beliefs are programmed in the first 7 years of our life, and they're unconscious. We don't have a say to say, well, just program this to us, because we're trying to program our mind at that stage. What is a phone? You know, we put a phone in our mouth, or a spoon. What is a bike? What is who's a mother? Who's the caregiver? So we're taking all these programming from our society at that time, and we're getting programmed. And we have no conscious say in that. It's just being done. And then it becomes our known, but they become blind knowns. We don't even know that these consciousness, that they're happening, right? So we based our identity off of that. So now for myself, I was chasing success. So now what was my identity? My identity was just chasing money, and I was chasing all these material things. So I was living such a shallow life, but I thought my purpose was to make money. And so I was disconnected with my purpose. So when you're disconnected with your purpose, it leads you to question, who am I? And when you say, who am I? You start peeling the onion, right? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Is this my belief? Is I'm East Indian, and any Indian viewer will know our parents want us to be a doctor, they want us to be a lawyer, they want us to be an accountant. That's the three choice.
That's it. That's all you have.
That's all you have. And if you don't do those, you're a failure.
Yeah.
Okay, so what am I being taught? And so that's a cultural identity, right? So we have cultural identities as well, dogma as we call them. So when we say identity shifting, now we can't just transform our identity overnight, because it wouldn't stick, right? So we have to go down deep and start peeling that onion, which I did in the Himalayas, to go back. And I called it, I became a neutral canvas. And I said, as we said with building the relationship with Chakras, I had to get to know me. I'm going on 50 years old, and I'm telling you, I had to get to know me. After 50 years, I don't know me. And that's where most people are. Why do you like this? People don't even know that.
They can't even answer it.
You know,
well, it's like you were talking about a second ago. You said your identity, like you had a girlfriend, and your identity is your girlfriend. Well, remember what you were before that. You were something before that. It's like being in a long marriage. Like people get divorced and like, I'm lost. I don't know who I am now. But you were somebody before that. So it's really, and that's the thing, we get lost in. It's really somebody else's identity and how they want us to be, right? And so you called it blind knowns, and I like to call it blind obvious observations, because they're blind to us and other people can see them. And so, right? So it's kind of thing.
And that's the craziest thing. They can see them and you can't see them. It's
you're like,
dangerous.
how did I miss that?
How did I miss that?
So you talk about, we're talking about here restructuring and subconscious reprogramming. How can somebody identify limiting beliefs? And in the second part of that, what would be a really good first step to overcome those?
Yeah, definitely. So limiting beliefs, number one, because they're conditioned from such a young age, it's challenging to just get at that from a surface level. So what I teach, we go through deep, here's a great thing. Number one, people don't even know what their story is, right? We're all playing a story in our head. So you gotta, I have a activity, it's about a 4-hour activity. You go out into nature and you just brain dump. What's my story? Because you want to just write it as fast as possible, bring it out of your subconscious and understand. And that's where you're going to read it after. Just write your heart out.
With no filter, you just write. Don't worry about the order. Just get it out, right?
Just go to the depth of your subconscious mind and just dump it, right? Everything that you can get out, just dump it within that 4 hours. You're going to disconnect from society. Then you're going to start reading it. And especially, and I'm saying story right from your childhood, right from your born. What do you remember? Get it all out of that subconscious mind. And this is going to be your raw data. And once you get that raw data out, then you start analyzing and you start going through it. You start reading it. This is a body of work and you start seeing it. So now, then you want to start taking, we teach deep meditations going into the subconscious mind. The deeper you go into your meditations, then you start seeing your childhood. You start seeing your childhood. So now I even know where my false beliefs were programmed. And when you want to de-energize a false belief, now let's say number one is awareness. So you want to bring awareness to the whole process. First of all, what are my beliefs? Most people don't even know what their beliefs are. And they don't even know they have a conscious choice to program a belief or de-energize a belief. So first is bringing awareness to that whole structure that my identity is based off of my beliefs. So my identity, I was fat. So when I lost the weight, I was still fat. Imagine that. I lost 100 pounds, but my identity was still fat. So I was still doing fat things in my life. I was still looking at myself as fat. I was still buying fat clothes. I was still working out. I couldn't work out with fit people because I was still fat. So my identity was around fat. So going back to your false beliefs in your childhood, bringing that awareness to the process, bringing the meditation to the process, it's going to start loosening up all that stuff that you suppressed over your whole life because false beliefs are suppressed so deep. Now imagine if we're 50 and we're going back to the first 7 years of our life. But as you consciously keep doing it and you keep doing it and you keep doing it, you start realizing false beliefs and you start questioning in your life. Here's another good exercise. Every decision that you're making based off beliefs, structures that we've been programmed with. So you understand, what are my beliefs and why am I making this decision? And when you start asking the why am I doing this? Why? Is this my belief? Is this my value? So what you're doing is, again, you're peeling the onion. You're trying to get deeper into who you are. And then you start saying, why am I doing this? Oh, actually, this is what my father used to do. That's why
I was about to say the same thing.
I don't even like that.
I was about to say it's something your parents did or somebody that you admired or something growing up. It's like, well, that's not even really me. I don't really identify with that. You know?
Yeah. Do I even like that? Do I like this food? Is this my choice? Is this my thinking? And I call it metacognitive behavior, right? Metacognition, which is the study of your own behavior. And the deeper you get into your own perception, because we only have our lenses, and like we talked earlier, but we don't know if our lenses are correct. So what if I went 54? So I'm going on 50. 40 years of that 50 were I was conscious. So 10 years I wasn't conscious because you're just a child, right? But 40 years I lived a false life off of false beliefs. It wasn't even my life. So imagine now I'm realizing that midpoint in my life, but imagine now if you didn't realize till you're 80, 90, and you didn't do this inner work and you're living this false life and you get to the end of your life and you say, that wasn't even my life.
So when you realized that you were living a false life, was there anger with that too? Like, my God, I've not even been in control of my own life. Like, you know what I mean? Was there kind of anger at yourself in a way that you did not? Does that make sense? Like,
yes,
part of me, I would be mad at myself. Like, what the hell have I been doing? You know? So,
yeah.
You know,
there was anger, there was frustration, there was sadness, there was a lot of emotions that had to be processed. That if you're not working with a coach, you're not working with somebody to process that. So remember, all these emotions are stored, right? So now when we're talking about false beliefs, who inflicted them on you? And usually they're your caregivers. So you have a mother involved, you have family members involved. Now, the anger is going to be directed towards them first. Why did you do this to me? And they didn't consciously do it either. So there's a whole domino effect that if you don't understand how to process these emotions and release them. So again, now when we work with our clients and we get down deep into those false beliefs, in the de-energizing process, before we ever talk about reprogramming the subconscious mind, we got to de-energize these and we got to release them, because we got to release the people also who inflicted those false beliefs on us. And when we go down so deep in that first 7 years of our programming, and when we've located, like I've had people cry, they're like, oh my God, this is where it came from.
Right.
And it's releasing it, but then it's also releasing that person, because you got to understand, whether mother, father, foster parents, whoever it was, whoever's raising you, you got to release them too, because it wasn't their fault. Usually they're not no parent's going to
They were
intentionally.
doing their best, right? They were doing what they knew. They were doing their best. I wrote, and this made me think about this. And I want to let you go. So I said, here's what I said. I wrote this back in 2022. In what ways might your life improve if we were to recognize that we are all just figuring out as we go? In what ways would your image of yourself improve because you're not comparing yourself to other people thinking they have it figured out too? And in what ways can we heal looking back on our caregivers' stories and realizing they were just trying to figure it out too? Like, there's a lot of grace in that, man. So much grace with them, but also with self. We're so quick to give it away, but we don't give grace enough to ourselves either. So man.
100%. And, for myself, just as an example, then I went deeper into, my father was in the Indian Army. He fought 3 wars. He had PTSD. My mother, so Pakistan and India had split in 1947, I believe, 42.
Yeah,
42. So she was on the side that belonged to Pakistan. So they were displaced. So they had to, their home, everything was taken away. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is they were programmed from their past, right? From their mothers, from their fathers. And then it was their blind spot. That blind spot was then given to us, to the next generation. And it just keeps passing on. But now, with the technologies that we have, it's our duty. See, we can have these conditionings, we can have these programmings. We can choose to just pass them on, or we can choose to do the work and solve it and clear ourselves to live our better life. And that's awareness. Once we get the awareness, that work is not easy. This stuff that we're talking about right here, Scott, is not easy. There's years of work, years of frustration. You're not going to just get it. And people, what's easy, Scott, is to leave your belief structure as it is and keep operating the way you're doing.
Well, and part of that too is you're scared of what it's going to look like when you change it, because you're comfortable. It's kind of like, again, going back why people stay in marriages. I don't know what it's going to be like if I don't. I'm miserable, but it could be a whole lot worse. There's comfort in the misery, right? There's comfort in the misery. So, and I think too, like thinking about, you talking about the process of shedding these things away, these layers, and you peeling it back over time. And I think what's really, I don't want people to get lost on, and you said it and you've made it clear throughout this, having a coach is vitally important in this, because the deprogramming that's going to happen is, man, you can really reprogram it and make it worse because you don't have proper guidance putting those pieces back together. So, man, when you go through this, get some, even if it's not a quote unquote true professional, kind of like find a Raj, find somebody that, that's that higher kind of thinker level that gives it to you real and the right way and says, hey, no, here's how you need to kind of try to piece this back together. Because, man, you could be worse off after the deprogramming.
Yeah. And that's where it ties into now coming back to identity, because we don't want to go to the source, meaning the cause, the false beliefs, and go all the way back, because it is a lot of work. But now we give our identity so many different meanings. We give it to our spouse. We're just giving our identity away, and we really don't know what our identity is.
Yeah.
So that's why identity shifting, you can't make all these changes overnight, but you can make incremental changes over your life. And as your life shifts into the next era or to the next, we got you got your young ages, you got your teenage, you got your adult, and you got your older life. So as you move through life, your identity has to shift, because if you're sticking to the same identity that from way back 7 years old, and you're carrying those beliefs, you're not going to be happy. You're not going to be fulfilled. You're not going to be a big thing that we say is aligning your purpose with your success. And to understand even what your purpose is, you got to shed off all these beliefs. You got to shed off all these identities that don't even belong to you, and they're outdated, like those clothes I was talking about.
Well, and then think about this too, is, would you trust a 7-year-old with your finances? Would you trust that's what you're doing every day when you haven't dealt with it, right?
Great analogy. Great analogy. I love that one. I love that.
You haven't dealt with it. So I love it, man. I want to talk a little bit more about your book and kind of what people can expect there. Again, Awakened Identity, The Journey to Purpose and Empowerment. Of course, this link will be in the show notes. Is it out? You're working on it. Is it out yet?
I'm finishing. So I just came back to the West Society now. Now it's been 4 months.
Wow.
I was doing great in the Himalaya mountains, Scott. I didn't even want to come back to the West. In my mind,
that's where you're supposed to be. Like, I'm supposed to be here, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah. You know, and the thing is, I'll be honest, it's not easy to be in the Himalaya mountains and separated from society. But when you get over that, it's easier to be there because those challenges that we face in a Western society, we don't have there. Mm-hmm. So for me, life was amazing, living the monk lifestyle, understanding so much. But I knew in my meditation one day it came to me. And I say when I was up there, I had become so in-depth in my training that I didn't know what I became. Right? Because I wasn't interacting with the West.
You had no barometer to see where you, right? Yeah.
Nobody from my past life for 7 years was with me, nor did I talk to people on the phone. I just left that whole world. And it came to me that I had to walk through the ashes of the world that I burned to understand what is needed, not only for myself of what I become, but what I can give value to society. And now coming back. So first I've spent 3 months with my father and my sister, and I rebuilt those relationships, and I just served them in the sense I didn't use social media, nothing. I just came back to social media just probably 2 weeks ago after 3 years. So I just served them to build those relationships back because I was that success chasing guy, and I just pretty much used everybody to get what I needed in that stage of my life. So I came back, spent 3 months, and they just had such a, and my dog too, which I gave to my sister 7 years ago when I left. I had to rebuild a relationship from my dog, my sister, to my father. So I came through, built those relationships, and in those building that relationships and serving, then all the things that I've become started coming to me because I was in service. And when you're in service, these are the things that start coming out. And they're like, wow, what have you become? You're not who you were. And then now coming into society, now I see the teachings that I've come, and I've written the book now over the last 5 months. I'm in the last chapters, 14, 15. And yeah, so that will be in about 2025, first quarter, that will be out. And we talk a lot about, right from the beginning, your belief structures, aligning your purpose, so I've come up with a 6-step framework of how to reprogram the whole conscious mind, subconscious mind, how to use visualization, but merging the East and the West, like we talked about the chakras, how to bring those together and how to look at it from a different aspect. If you're just talking to a psychologist here on the West side, they're going to give you just the psychology and the science. There's not going to be any East in there. But with my teachings, it's both the East and the West combined. And so it gives it another flair and another way for, how the brain looks at things. The brain is looking at things when we got to learn something. It's going to just, if we're talking about psychology online, you've seen all the psychology, right? You go through, scroll through. If you're following self-development, those algorithms, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Instagram, they're giving you all that stuff. So the brain is numb that out. But when you take those and you give it a twist of the Indian or the Eastern philosophy, and you mix it, brain says, whoa, I haven't seen this.
What's that? Yeah.
What is this? I want to know more. So the brain gets inquisitive. And I see people, when you give it that twist and you're amalgamating the two teachings and you're going after the same outcome, people learn better. The brain, it's about the brain. It's more intrigued. It's more taking the teachings in because now you're amalgamating a lot of the meditations that we do, going down deep into the subconscious mind, and I call it imprinting. You got to imprint the subconscious mind you got to remember, if we're dealing with something, let's say example, we're 50 years old, we're dealing with 50 years of conditioning. That ain't going to be unconditioned overnight, number one. First, we got to deal with the psychological effects and the emotional effects. So once we de-energize that, when we're imprinting With my framework, it's 6 methods that we're using. So we got to use every aspect. And over time, you're going to imprint a new conditioning, your new beliefs, your new identity. And then once you understand the process, now you're empowered. What I work a lot with is empowering people. I don't want you to have to keep coming back to me. I want to empower you with the knowledge, the techniques, the ways to grow yourself and live a better life.
So much so that they outgrow you. They've gone beyond you.
Exactly.
And so, and what I hear in this messaging is you're trying to create something where the audience has familiarity to it enough to where I've seen a little bit of something similar, like the meditation thing. I understand meditation, but then you're sprinkling in these things that may not have seen yet, because you've got to still be able to speak, quote unquote, the language of the audience enough where they'll buy it. I want to ask you this: you're back 4 months, right, from this immersion that you had? Are there any, like, on the way here, or have you had these moments? I know that I would. I'm asking because I know this is how I'd feel. Do you fear the challenges? Are there any fears of the return? Like, is this going to stick? Is this, you know what I mean? Like, do you have you had those conversations with yourself? I'm curious. I know I would, for sure.
Yeah, funny, Scott, I talk about it in the book. So when I was creating this, it's called the Neuro Shift Framework. And why I created it, first of all, learning from the sages, the masters, but then bringing the West. And I worked with very high-level professionals in India and abroad. And so the first thing is, you understand, you see all these stories and people revert back to their old ways. And I don't drink alcohol now, but back in my days, I was a heavy drinker, alcohol, drugs. These 2 things are normal. Alcohol, drugs, sex, like those are vices, right?
Yeah,
Whether it's coffee, whatever it is, but the predominant, those are the 3. And they're normal in our society. We can't even say they're not normal. I would say I'm not going to drink anymore. Next weekend comes, I'm drinking, right? You're going to have that trauma. And then the next weekend, you're going to revert back to your environments. So yes, I did, of course. And that's when the real work with me happened in the sense that, yeah, I had to come back and I had to face those environments. I had to face those vices, and I had to face, am I strong enough? But when I was writing the book, going back a couple of years, creating that neural shift framework a couple of years earlier, this was the intention to say, and this is why we hit it from 6 angles, from the deep meditative level and working with the subconscious mind, because we got to program it to that level. Because if you're working with somebody and it's only surface level, guess what? You're going to walk back into society and you're going to revert back to your own ways. And that's just what we do predominantly as humans, right? So that's why creating this framework and deeply conditioning it into your molecules, into your genes, like it's just deeply ingrained, getting to the subconscious mind, your nervous system, from every aspect. And then that's why you're able to sustain that change. And when I came back, I quit drinking. Yes. So, but I'll tell you, here's a test. One of my mentors said, and I'm not suggesting this to anybody, but it's myself, said, well, what good is something, and what power do you have if you can never touch it again? And I said, he said, you're just avoiding it. It made me think.
Yeah.
I said, so what are you saying to me?
What are you saying? Yeah.
Right. He said, there's no power if you're just avoiding it. He said, you're running. And I said, yeah, you're right. So he didn't tell me exactly what to do, but and sages and masters, they're never going to do that. But now I can have a beer. I can have a glass of wine. I don't drink hard alcohol because I have no care for it. But then I learned coming back, and it's funny, if we go to the biblical times, Jesus, I can drink red wine and enjoy it. And they drank that in those days. And it actually gives me a stimulation to channel creativity at those levels. I don't go over 2 glasses because that's what he was talking about. So it's when you can just enjoy a glass
Yeah.
You can stimulate yourself intellectually. You can enjoy a beer, and that's it. Walk away from it. So you're not running away from anything. You're sitting there, you're empowering yourself. You can do that. And that's the beauty thing about it is once you've harnessed your mind, what it is, I call it monkey mind, whether we all have monkey mind, it's talking to us, whether you want to say it's an untrained horse, it's just running away. You have to train that. You have to train it with your meditation practices diligently on a daily basis, like you brush your teeth. That's why you have nice teeth today, or
ego is important, or you wouldn't brush your teeth, right? You just can't let it completely take over and control. It has its place.
It has its place, and especially when you're courting the opposite sex.
Yeah, right.
If you didn't have ego, you wouldn't smell good. If you didn't have ego, your hair wouldn't look good. Your nails wouldn't be done. Like these are things that we need to make our practices. But it's harnessing the mind in such a way where you're not avoiding something. You're going back and you're unraveling right from your belief systems to your identity, to your purpose. So Scott, when you're going to the origin of what you're made of, your psychological makeup, and you're reprogramming, I'm the one telling you that today I can sit anywhere and I can have one beer and I can shut it off.
Yeah.
I can walk away.
Yeah.
And that's real empowerment.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. That's a really good answer to the question. I mean, when you were going through all this, like, man, it'd be challenging to come back. Cause I know I go back, it's simple. Like when I was in the military and law enforcement, transitioning back into civilian life is weird because you're used to structure and all this kind of stuff. But it's not like that. Like in the military, for the most part, and law enforcement, when you're told to do something, you say, they tell you something's it's going to happen. There's no, in civilian world, it's not like that. There's a whole lot of, there's no guardrails on a lot of stuff. You're like, this is really difficult to assimilate back into. It's totally not even the same realm of things as, but it's similar in some sense. So someone kind of new to mindfulness, meditation, all these things we're kind of talking about here. What one, couple, whatever, some simple things people can kind of implement, kind of starting today to be on that path of great, more mindfulness, opening up more. What are some things people can do now?
First and foremost, and I think this in itself, to start incorporating a habit, because you got to create a habit first and you got to build on that habit, but it's meditation. And the thing now in the Western society, meditation has become so complicated and convoluted because they want you to seek out a teacher. They want you to go pay somebody to meditate. And the simple thing that when people ask me how to meditate, I ask them, did somebody teach you how to sleep?
Right. Exactly. Man, so that's funny you say that. I will let you finish your answer. But what I say when people come to me is, how do you meditate? When I can't get complete calmness and shut out of the noises. So don't then. Like, okay, if there's a bird chirping in the background, it was put there for a reason in your meditation. Focus on it. Okay, what sounds is it telling me? What can I hear in the layers of the tone? Can I hear beyond that? That's meditation. You're controlling, that's meditation. It's not like this complete, where you're not going to hear anything. You're going into auditory exclusion kind of stuff. It just doesn't, right? So anyway, so some additional tips.
The brain's not made to shut off.
No, it's a lot of noise. You cannot turn it off.
To shut off, the saber-toothed tiger would have made us extinct. We can't shut the brain off. Right. That's not possible. We are created by nature, by God, to react.
So saber-tooth tiger is your fear. It sounds like to me that's your fear is the saber-tooth, because you talked about the saber-tooth. That's the animal for you.
Yeah, well, in our primal days, we ran away from saber-tooth tigers. That's right. Where we come from. And if we think today we're going to shut off that brain, well, you're fighting millions of years of conditioning and programming from where we come from, where today you're going to say, like you said, to shut off the mind. No, that's not going to happen. And first and foremost, I would say, like I said, did anybody teach you how to sleep? And once you break that question, they're like, well, no. Okay, then that's what meditation is. Mm-hmm. It's natural. But we've stimulated our brains so much with technology and society that we're not able to just sit alone for 5 minutes. We got to pull out the phone. And I rarely see a person sitting on them alone in this day and age without a phone.
Mm-hmm. Or
Right?
even when they're in a group, everybody's on their phone in a group.
Everybody. So that
they're not even
is
present.
training our mind. You're stimulating. Those are dopamines happening. These are chemical reactions happening. And when you don't get them, you're picking up the phone, you put it down. So just sitting for 5 minutes every morning. Actually, I would say 15 minutes. 5 minutes is too beginner. 15 minutes is the challenge. But now your body's going to tell you can't sit for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And the body's going to now influence the brain. It's going to trick you. And it's going to say, oh, no, I'm tired at the gym. It's going to make so many excuses. But you want to bring the awareness to say, this is just my mind and my body working against me. Mind doesn't want to be trained. Mind is having a party right now. And guess what? It's at your expense, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're chasing the mind. Mind says, let's go here. You're the monkey and you're following the mind. Mind says, okay, now I'm done with this. Now let's go over here. Now you're following the mind over here. So the mind's just taking you on this journey and it's playing you like a fool. And most people don't understand that. So it's sitting in silence, 15 minutes daily. Choose the same time, preferably in the morning, because the mind is less agitated. It's coming out of a sleep. It's more calm. Sit and just sit for that 15 minutes and then sit in the stillness. Sit in the thoughts. Sit in the discomfort. Sit. It's going to take you 90 days just to make that habit of sitting. And then after the 90 days come, then like you said, you're not going to shut off anything, but just be aware. Yeah, if the bird's chirping, enjoy the chirping, right? People say, I need complete quiet. That's not how it works. If you need, if you say, I need this, or I can't meditate.
That's just, you're making excuses to not do it. You're making excuses not to do it. And I'll say, this too, is like being part of the mindfulness of a meditation to get yourself centered and back to kind of your essence, so to speak, is think about the things that are happening right there, then and now. Okay. I can't shut the noise off. I'm aware of that. So you've checked that off. So then you're not battling that. Okay. What am I doing? I'm sitting in a chair. The chair is made of whatever. I'm wearing a green shirt, blue jeans, my feet are touching the floor. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, in the United States. My skin feels nice. I'm breathing. Like you're checking off all of these things. That's meditation. You don't have to be like, yeah, I mean, that's great, but that's meditation. So like you said, I like what you said about anybody teach you to sleep. I hadn't thought of that analogy before. It's really good. I like that. So what are some of the common challenges of the people you coach that come to you, kind of the common things that you see?
Most people don't understand what identity is and that you can change your identity, and your identity transforms over your life because you have sections of your life, whether you have children, then you have your golden years. So as you grow, your identity has to grow. And then going back even deeper than that is the false beliefs. Most people are operating on false beliefs. Every single person. There's a very few percentage that had a great upbringing in the sense that they understand their beliefs. So really the false beliefs, most people are running on blind spot narratives and they're running the story in their head and they're just playing this. Most people don't understand that we have a narrative in our head and they're talking to a voice. A voice is talking to you. It's either with you or it's against you. And you can call it monkey mind. You can call it whatever you want, but we all have that voice in our head.
We're hypnotizing ourselves every single day.
Every single day, whether for our good or for our bad.
Yeah.
And the best thing, guess what? You can't get rid of that voice, but you can make friends with that voice. This is what I teach all my clients. It takes time, but that voice will become your friend. But you got to understand, what is the story that you're playing in your mind? Because usually that story is against you. It's negative. It's with so much limiting beliefs that it won't allow you to propel in your life and break past your limiting beliefs and really do what your passion is showing you the way to get that inner greatness and break out of your identity and create your real self, your true identity, your true self. And I think that's the main thing that most people, they come with something that they want to be, you know, whether you want to be a high performer, whether you're a hustler, I did the hustle, high performance, sports, workouts, it all comes back to your belief structure. So whatever you want to improve in relationships, whatever you want to improve in your life, you got to come back to your beliefs. You got to come back to your identity, and you got to work on that. So identity or beliefs, identity, purpose. Those are the three most important parts of the psyche that I work with. And that in itself is a whole life work, because new beliefs come up and you're going to keep facing new challenges. I mean, if it was that easy, if we just snap our fingers and then all of a sudden we got a perfect life, yeah, the world would be a different place. But I don't think that we really want that either, because things would be too easy. We got to work for it, and we got to understand these things. And again, it's just understanding belief structures. That's the biggest thing I could tell people, is the decisions that you make, always question them. Is this my decision? Is this based off my beliefs? What are my beliefs? What is my purpose? What am I here for?
Yeah.
Those are all valid questions.
The obstacle is the way, you know, and we thrive and, you know, when we face something challenging and overcome it. I'd look at your plant back there and it made me think about, like, if we had logged in today and I saw that plant withering, it would be very easy to say, oh, dumb plant. I mean, you can't blame the plant. It's the pot and the soil that it's in. So that's what we're doing when we're going to the root of it. There's meaning here. We're saying roots. There's a reason why that's a saying. We're going to the roots of it and giving it the nutrients it needs so that it can thrive above. And it ties back into how you're talking about how the chakras go up the body. Well, that's what plants do. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So the kind of a central theme takeaway you hope people will get from your book when it releases, and when it does, you got to make sure you tell me so I can link it in the show notes and let people know that it's out.
Yes,
by the way, too. So
indeed,
what's kind of the central thing you hope people take away from it? Like what are you hoping to accomplish with that?
Just like you said, so we go back to the plant analogy. Look, as we get older, we're going to age. We can't stop that. But what I'll tell you is, once you live a life that's in flow and you program your life by design, and you go back from your belief structures to your identity, to your purpose, you thrive. You don't age as fast. You're not as stressed out. Your life is more calm. It shows on your face. As I went through this process, if I showed you a picture of either when I was 18, even before my trip, coming back now, I'm younger. You know, I my energy is more than a 16-year-old. People are like, whoa, you have crazy energy. My workouts are more, like, everything I do is better. And why is that? Is because my inner life is structured by design, and I know my true self. I'm connected with my energy centers, and everything else just flourishes because, like the plant, I've taken care of the soil.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing. We got to take care of our soil.
That's beautiful, man. So what does success mean to you, and how do people redefine it for themselves?
Success for me today now is my habits and rituals. That's it. Performing them on a daily basis, and they're ingrained with me, in me, like brushing my teeth. So whether it's just meditating every single day, twice a day, doing yoga every single day, going to the gym every day, drinking my juices every day. So I'm the foundation. If I crack, my whole world cracks, right? So while going to my roots, my success, how can I put out this energy? How can I do anything in life? It goes back to my habits and rituals. So if I'm performing, it's not about working a job. It's not about a career. It's about the main root of my life is performing my habits and rituals, and everything else works around that. So if I'm traveling, it's my habits and rituals first, not my work, not my Zoom calls. It's my habits and rituals first. Those are the first things that I nurture, and the rest is just byproducts. So
because that's the foundation everything is going to be built on anyway, right?
That's the foundation. And Scott, I used to chase body images today, you know, what I look like, it's a byproduct now. I don't even concentrate on macronutrients. I don't concentrate on calories. I don't concentrate on protein, any of that. But I've never been as lean as I am. I've never had more energy than I am. I never felt as good as I am. And that's what it all comes down to. How do you feel? How do you feel?
Yeah.
It's not even about how you look. How do you feel? Because the way you feel will go into your looks. If you feel like shit, you're gonna look like shit. Sorry to say.
That's it. I have clients come and they say, "Hey, Scott, can I expect or they'll be in the middle of the process. Hey, I'm not seeing the results. They're 30 days in. Yeah, but how long did it take you to get here? They're like 25 years, 30 years. I'm like, I promise you, it's not going to take us that long to get out. It's going to take time though. It took you time to get here. You gotta just allow the process to take place. And then once you start doing those good habits, feeding the body right, mentally, physically, all that kind of stuff, it then craves more of that. And then your body tells you what it needs, and you don't have to macro, am I getting this? Am I getting that? Your body just craves what it needs naturally, right? So
100%.
I love that, man. So, okay, we're at the rapid fire section. Okay.
Okay.
So this piece here is I ask you a question. And it's the first thing that comes to your mind. You answer as fast as you can. That's why it's called rapid fire. You ready? You strapped in? You ready?
Ready to go, baby.
What's one word to describe transformation?
Wow, just drawing a blank. First word that came to me, and I didn't want to put it out, but I'll put it out. Work.
There you go. But it is. We're all work in progress, right? Always. Early bird or night owl? I know your answer.
Early bird.
Yeah, same, bro. Favorite spiritual practice?
Meditation.
Meditation. A book that has changed your life?
Autobiography of a yogi.
Favorite quote or mantra you live by?
I can, I will. It's done.
What's your comfort food?
Dal. Indian dal.
What if you could master any skill instantly, what would it be?
Meditation.
Favorite place to meditate?
Any place.
I like that because we can, right? Any place.
It's internal.
Zen, right? Yeah. What's your go-to for grounding yourself in tough moments?
Breathe. Breath.
Define purpose in one sentence.
Aligning yourself with your success.
Who inspires you the most right now?
I'm not going to say it's a who, but it's a people, the Upanishads. They're from the Himalaya mountains, an old civilization. And I'm learning a lot about their Ayurveda ways and the ancient ways. So, yeah.
That's great. That's obviously an answer that I'll probably never get again, that I've heard yet on any of the shows I've ever done. That's amazing. If you could teach one lesson to your younger self, what would it be?
Meditation.
Comes back to that, right?
Everything is meditation.
That's where the work happens, man. Because so many things come up in meditation. So it's beautiful, man. So tell people where, and I'll link this in the notes, show notes and whatnot. Where can people find you? How can they connect with you? I know you had kind of mentioned this already, but I think this is a good place to say it again. When do you estimate your book coming out? Any of that kind of stuff. Talk about that.
Definitely. Yeah. So again, I just came back to society. It's been about 4 months. So we're working, putting the team together. So we're getting a new website. Now it's in the works. My social media handles are the same. Real Raj Brar on Instagram, YouTube. And the website will be rajbrarcoaching.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn as well.
So RAJBRAR is for
Correct.
The listeners that are not viewing this. So this is the part where I always like to give the guest the last word of whatever advice, inspiration. It's your outro. What's the last thing you want to share with people as they sign off? today?
I think the theme that I've give everywhere is meditation. You gotta look, everything that we're experiencing in this physical realm is from our brain. And if we don't have a conscious practice to tame that brain to do what we needed to do, we're lost because we won't even understand reality. And to understand ourselves, meditation is the only way. Meditate. It's medicine for everything in your life. So meditation. That's the main thing that I always preach.
Man, beautifully said. I love that so much. Well, thanks guys for tuning in. Until next time, this is another episode of Reinventing Life After 50, and this is always to your health. Bye now.
Namaste.